Welcome to the PFP podcast, a place for thought-provoking discussion from the world of financial planning and beyond. My name is Hannah Bradley and I am the Head of Communications and Engagement for the Chartered Insurance Institute Group, and I'm here with Chief Executive Matthew Hill. Hello, Matthew.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
Thanks for the introduction.
No worries. We're here to talk about the CII's progress so far against the strategic plan, but also plans for the future of the next for the rest of 2026. And I wanted to ask you just to start off really. Before we talk about sort of plans and progress, how would you describe the last year at CII in 3 words?
Great question. I'm going to say good job done. But I'm going to give another 3 words, more to do.
Oh, go on.
That's it. No, good job done. More to do.
Excellent. And, well, I guess
we'll talk a little bit about the more to do part of it as we get on with the interview.
So, looking at the plan, where do you think so far that the CII has made the most meaningful progress?
So I'll start by saying that the discussion we're having today is quite timely. Yesterday was exactly 2 years since I joined the CII. This was my 2-year anniversary, and I've made it this far and delighted to be able to say that. When I joined the CII in 2024, I think it was facing 3 significant headwinds. One of them was a financial situation which wasn't the greatest. Another was a poor relationship with the Personal Finance Society. It was taking up a lot of energy for everybody involved. And the third was some issues with our IT and systems and processes. And it was clear to me pretty early that, you know, if we were going to be successful as an institute, and when I say institute, I mean all the different parts of the institute, the CII, the PFS, and CII Hong Kong and Middle East, and all the bits that make up the institute that not everybody always sees. If we're going to be successful, then we needed to deal with those headwinds. So I'm really delighted to be able to sit here today and say 2 of those headwinds are now in the rearview mirror, if you like. So the financial situation of the CII is really quite healthy. And that's really important because it gives us much more scope to be ambitious about our professional body mission and delivering that very noble purpose in our Royal Charter of building trust and confidence in insurance and financial planning. And I find that very motivating, and I hope my colleagues here do too. I'm pretty sure that they do. I'm also delighted to be able to say that we've made really, really good progress in the relationship between the CII and the PFS. And that's required sacrifice and courage and vision by a whole range of people involved with both the CII and the PFS in a way that's made me very proud to be associated with. And, you know, I'm a director of the PFS. I have been since October 2024. And I can say now that for the last year, meeting after meeting after meeting has been really focused on delivering the best that the PFS possibly can for its members in a way that's inspiring and exciting and draws on the strength of being part of the CII group. And it might be wishful thinking on my part, but when I'm traveling around the country and engaging with members of both the CII and the PFS, I'm picking up a distinct sort of change in the level of optimism about that relationship. And actually, it's taken no encouragement from us at head office, but when I look at some of our local institutes who are changing their name to be the Local Institute of Insurance and Financial Planning, that fills me with a lot of hope and optimism for the future. And when I go to council meetings and dinners and various local events and see our 2 memberships working so closely hand in hand, I mean, it really is something to be celebrated. And like I said, I'm very proud to have been associated with that. So finances, great relationship with the PFS. We still have the headwind of systems and processes, which are not how we'd want them to be. And I know that for our members and our customers, the interface that they have with us through, if they want to purchase something from us or renew their membership or whatever, is not always as smooth as we would like it to be, and they certainly would like it to be. So we've been putting a lot of effort in behind the scenes to make that experience as good as it possibly can be within our existing estate. And I've got colleagues here at the CII who have worked super hard to minimize the impact on members in particular, but we can't really sustain that going forward. So we've got to change the way that we do things so that we're having to invest much less manual labor, if you like, in making those systems work in the way that I think a reasonable person in 2026 would expect them to work. So last year was really all about the PFS and the finances. This year is all about improving those systems. And I think that, along with some other things that we've been doing, gives us a really strong platform to bring the Institute back as a professional body that the two professions we serve can be really proud of. So
from a member's perspective, when you say all the systems are changing and improving and streamlining, what would that look like to a member from their experience? What would you hope them to experience?
So it's a great question. And the first thing to say is that almost the biggest thing that we need to achieve is something that they won't notice, which is the removal of hassle, the removal of friction, the sort of thing that doesn't sort of bring the world to an end, but might cause you to roll your eyes to the ceiling. You know, the wheel of death spinning for 15 seconds. Maybe in the future it'll roll for 1 second. No one is going to put an article in the Insurance Post saying wheel of death cut down from 15 to 1 second, but members will feel it collectively because it'll just be easier and smoother. And of course, I use that as an example of a sort of broader point. It's removing the friction. It's making us, as I describe it here with colleagues, easy to do business with. You know, that life is full of complexity and pressure, particularly for working professionals. And we need to remove as much of that as possible so that, you know, dealing with us as a professional body is not a stressful experience. It's easy. It's not clunky. It's intuitive. And like I said, people aren't going to write home about that, but they may not even notice it. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is unlocking potential to enable us to do some really innovative things. So I'm very conscious, for example, that the way that we deliver and record, if you like, CPD is quite old-fashioned. It's certainly not best in class, and it probably ought to be best in class. So how do we get to the point where we can give life to the things that we know we need to deliver but are currently constrained because the systems are not flexible enough, or they're too old, or they don't draw the data together, or the data isn't in the right sort of shape. So all sorts of platform building, if you like, that enables us then to deliver in a more innovative way. But I think thing number one is the thing that people won't notice, which is the removal of hassle.
I think any removal of the wheel of death would be a front page news everywhere in my mind. But I do know what you mean. It's the absence of hassle.
Yeah, exactly.
But you talk about, you're talking digitally. Like one of our key strategic plan aims is about digital first. Is that what you're talking mainly about in terms of that hassle point? It's about recording CPD quickly, easily online.
So these days, most people are used to doing most things digitally if they want to. And we haven't reached that standard. We have moved a long way towards it, but we're not quite there yet. So when we talk about digital first, this is all about enabling members to do things with us simply and easily online that in some cases they have to do physically. I don't want anyone thinking the digital first means that we are losing sight of the great joy there is to be had through the direct face-to-face connection and network that we are renowned for at the CII. The great work of the local institutes and the PFS regions in bringing professionals together physically. But the admin, if you like, the transactions with us ought to be streamlined, hassle-free, and available for anyone to do on their mobile phone or on their laptop when they're on the train or whatever it happens to be. And it should be easy.
And looking a bit more at the broader strategic plan, is there anything in particular from the last year or so that you feel particularly proud of having achieved?
There's so much I feel proud of. I'm very, I say I've been here 2 years now. I'm very proud to be associated with the CII. And so proud, in fact, I'll share with you for the first time in public that I've embarked on my own CII qualifications, and I'm finding it really rewarding, actually. But let me pick out some examples. So I think the CII has been quietly refinding its voice. So if you look at the excellent work that is being led by Adam Harper and others in the space of thought leadership, I think it is genuinely inspiring. And I'm going to pick out a couple of things in particular. So the Road to Consumer Trust series of roundtables, I think was really high quality in two ways. One, in the way that it brought such a broad range of partners and stakeholders together, from insurance and financial planning, and more broadly from wider third sector, so which and regulators like the FCA all around the table focused on getting the best treatment for vulnerable consumers. So I'm proud of that, the way that it was done. I'm also really proud of the product. And, some listeners will know I spent a lot of my career in central government as a policymaker, and the material that's been produced on vulnerability out of the Road to Consumer Trust work is as good as anything I've seen in my career. I think it's really first rate and reflects very skillful building of consensus. So really proud of that. And we're doing more of that. So we've just kicked off another series of roundtables on non-financial misconduct. And again, we're building up a coalition of quite a wide range of voices, including the FCA. And I'm hoping that we can produce something at least as good quality on financial misconduct. So I'm really proud of that. Another thing that I'm really proud of is when I came to the CII, it was clear to me quite early on that within the organisation itself, we needed to remind ourselves that we were a professional body established by a Royal Charter, and that made us different from companies, let's say. And I've been really delighted and proud of the way that colleagues throughout the organisation have responded to that call. Now, it doesn't mean that we can afford to be, commercially unsuccessful. We can't afford that. We have to raise our own funds to deliver that public purpose of building trust and confidence in insurance and financial planning. But it's really important that everybody who works here in service of the insurance and financial planning professions has top of mind that our purpose is trust and confidence. Our purpose is supporting those professions with high quality education, training and development. Our purpose is not to be a commercial training company, but we have to have the highest quality, the highest standards, and we need to raise the funds that are necessary to deliver those standards. We are purpose-led. And like I said, I think I'm really proud of the way colleagues have responded to that and the support that the boards, both the CII board and the PFS board, have provided to that notion. It's unlocked a lot of other things. One thing that, I'll give you three things. So my third thing is I've had the great privilege while I've been at the CII to visit members and in fact our teams in parts of the world outside the UK. So some listeners will know that we've got a Hong Kong office and we've got an office in the Middle East in Dubai. And visiting those places and meeting members and businesses in Asia Pacific and the Middle East has really brought home to me in what high regard the CII is held throughout the world. And, you know, I think it's not always fully visible to members here in the UK, the breadth of the network to which they belong and the quality of the network to which they belong and the high esteem that the qualifications that they have are held in across the world. It really is seen as the gold standard. And I think that should be a matter of pride for anyone associated with the CII. Its history, its tradition, its reputation for standards and rigor are things that we should all treasure, I would say. And
you've recently visited China.
I have.
Do you have any particular reflections from the way they do things out there or taken anything particular back?
I've been enriched hugely by that experience and in some ways humbled by many of the people that I've met. So in some ways, very, very similar to the UK. So in the UK, I've met hundreds of members, amazing people, committed to, passionate about their professions, committed to, passionate about training and development, committed to and passionate about bringing young people into the professions. And that's a delight. And I see that mirrored abroad, and I saw it in China. And in particular, the commitment to really high quality academic and professional education and training. And in some ways, there is as much we can learn from the focus on education and training in China as we might think that China has to learn from us. And I think there's real potential to welcome accomplished insurance and financial planning professions into our community in China and Asia more broadly. But we've got to think more imaginatively about how we do that. So I'll give you an example. So I should really give you a few examples for fear of giving offence to the people I don't mention. But I was lucky enough to spend time with a number of universities, higher education institutions, who are running seriously impressive postgraduate programs in insurance, taking in high quality graduates and taking them to very high standards of understanding and expertise in insurance. Taking a big step back, I don't see why we would not be enriched by welcoming graduates of those programs into our community. But at the moment, the way we do things makes that quite hard because they haven't been through our formal qualification structure, and I think we need to be a lot more flexible about the way that we think about enlarging our family in a way that brings value to that family and maintains our reputation for the highest standards, but in a more flexible way, if that makes sense. There are people I met in China who I think we would all be proud to have as part of the CII family. And more importantly, they would be proud to be part of the CII family. And I think as a professional body, we should be all about pride in the profession. You know, that should be our rocket fuel. That's why we do these jobs. That's why the volunteers in the local institutes do the things they do. They're proud to be part of the professions they're part of. And I think we can, that pride is shared across the world, and we should be capitalizing on that. And
we've talked a bit about kind of the broad strategic plan where we're at now. What about the rest of 2026? If, for example, a year from now, what would you want members to be noticing has changed?
Yeah, okay. So let's break this down. So I've mentioned a couple of times that this year is a year that we're really focusing on improving systems. So we'll just bank that from earlier on. That is a central focus of everybody in a leadership position here at the CII. But that's not the only thing that we're doing. So lots of listeners will know that we're in the process of overhauling our qualifications framework. And we're in an advanced stage. We've got a great looking new framework, and we're at the point now where we're thinking about how we make that available to the world at large, if you like. And that's a flagship endeavor for us. It's going to make us more flexible in the way that we provide that central qualifications core, if you like. And alongside that, we are working out the broader range of routes to membership that go beyond formal qualifications. So doing practically a bit of what I've just been talking about in the context of China. How do we bring people into our family in ways that complement our central qualifications framework, but without compromising on quality or rigor or anything like that. So the overhaul of the qualifications framework that we've branded Professional Pathways is really important. I've already talked about our thought leadership work. That will continue on its evolutionary growth. I can see our influence growing. The material we're producing is being picked up by more people. The engagement is sort of enlarging our networks as we go along, and I think that's really important. That will continue. We have been really focusing on expanding our footprint internationally for all the reasons I've been talking about. That has been very successful. So we've seen a lot of growth over the last year or so internationally. And I think we've gone from something like 10% of membership being outside the UK to about 12 or 13% now. It doesn't sound like very much, but I think it's very important, because our strength as a professional body will come from the scale and diversity of our membership. And connecting with insurance and financial planning professionals abroad will add to that scale and diversity. Our voice will be louder and better informed the stronger our membership is. So that will continue. I've talked in previous podcasts about our work on the corporate chartered proposition, and that remains an important focus. What we're doing right now is bringing forward some changes to the proposition that don't fundamentally alter the, if you like, the business model, but implement some things that I know members are very keen on. So, for example, something that members tell me frequently is that corporate chartered firms should be giving something back to the profession. And of course, they all do, almost by virtue simply of going to the trouble of getting corporate chartered. But more specifically, I think we will probably change the rules to make it clearer that if you're a corporate chartered firm, we're expecting you to actively support your profession locally And then by far the easiest, most ready-made solution to that is to engage with your local institute or engage with your regional committee if in the PFS. And I think that could be quite a game changer. Linked to that is if thinking about the local institutes and the regional committees, the PFS regions, I think we've done quite a good job in improving the levels and organisation of support that we provide to the institutes and the regions. I think we've now got to start thinking about taking the next step, which is about making sure that we are building clarity of purpose for those networks. And of course, we all sort of instinctively know what they're for, but I don't think we've really properly articulated it. So we're providing clarity of purpose and proper tools to achieve that purpose. So, for example, I think there's a really important role for local institutes, and many of them are doing this very actively. A really important role for local institutes in engaging with education establishments locally. But we actually do comparatively little from head office to support local councils in achieving that. So can we provide things like toolkits or common set of language, or can we open doors at head office by contacting all the major universities in a region and putting people in touch and that sort of thing. So moving from the sort of slightly passive, we think you're marvelous and here's some money and get on with it, to here's a set of tools that are available to you to try and achieve this purpose. And you can say something similar about local employer engagement. At the moment, we leave local institutes and regions sort of just to get on with it themselves. I'm exaggerating a bit to make a point, but can we develop a toolkit? Can we open doors from head office by sending people like the CEO out to meet the CEO of a local employer, just to get as a sort of trailblazer for that sort of relationship. So it's moving that to the next level, and we're resourcing up accordingly here to make that happen.
Absolutely. And I think with them, particularly on your point about communications, working communications myself, being able to articulate that and articulate the purpose and getting that message across with clarity is really important.
Exactly. And I have long held to be true, self-evident, that if you can connect good people to clear purpose, you're unstoppable. We have good people in the local institutes and the PFS regions. We've got to connect them to that really clear purpose, and then they will be unstoppable. And that's something that excites me.
But it's also about aligning that purpose, making sure that that you're all there for the same reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important that this doesn't become that we don't try to control. Because one of the great joys, and I can tell you from having engaged with quite a lot of them now over the last 2 years, one of the great joys of the local networks is that they're all different and they all bring something different. And, what I'm not talking about is sort of controlling or standardizing the way that local institutes do things. But it's giving them a common framework and a common language and a common set of tools. And importantly, to your point, a common understanding of what it is that we're hoping that they can achieve. But to be able to do it very much in ways that make sense to them, that suit the local circumstances, but more support from us.
Absolutely. And just, I suppose, to sort of round things off a little bit, this strategic plan that we're in the middle of at the moment runs until 2027. It wasn't one that you instigated. You sort of came towards the end. And you're seeing it through. What's that like as a chief executive, sort of inheriting something like that? And then, the position you're in now, how do you kind of view it as a
I think that's a great question. It's one it may surprise you to hear I'm asked that quite a lot when I'm around and about. So I'm going to start by saying that my background, really, if anyone asked me to describe my profession, I'd probably say strategic communications and policy making. That's my career anchor, if you like. So a strategy like the CII's wouldn't be my first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. The reason why I say that is when I joined the CII, I could see straight away that this was a really good strategy. And while I might have chosen to do things differently, because the thing about strategic policymakers is that they all want to do it their own way, while I could see there were ways I might have done it differently, the strategy that I was inherited was really good. And the trade-off between sort of ditching it and starting again and actually just getting on with something that was really good anyway, it was a no-brainer. Get on with it anyway, because it's really good. And so I didn't feel any discomfort with that at all. And actually, there was a big opportunity for me, because I think the strategy we've got at the CII is a great blueprint for a modern professional body. It's really good. It articulates everything you would want in a professional body. The bit where I was able to add value was mapping out a path to becoming that really modern, super professional body. So I've not sort of wanted for opportunities to try to make a difference and bring something to the CII. Now, we will get to the end of that strategic period at the end of 2027, and we will start the process of the post-27 strategy probably sometime later this year. Spoiler alert, it's not my... The future strategy will not be my strategy. It will be the board strategy. And in fact, through the board, it will be the strategy of the members. But given how powerful the current blueprint is in the current strategy, it would not surprise me at all if the post-27 strategy was not wholly dissimilar to the pre-27 strategy, because the things about being a world-class professional body will not change very much. The things you might do will change. So the principles, if you like, that are set out in the current strategy, it wouldn't surprise me if they continued on in some form, perhaps, very closely matching what we've got. We want members to have an excellent experience. We want our learning to be world-class. We want to be a sustainable institute. We want to be a thought leader. We want to promote the highest professional standards. We want to be a digital-first institute. I can't see any of that really changing. But the things we might do to achieve that might change. And that's the process that we'll need to go through. Are the things we're currently doing now, they're still the right things? How are they affected by, and at the risk of being predictable, AI, for example? How are they affected by the way that people want to consume learning these days? How are they affected by changing appetites for CPD? How are they affected by changes in the regulatory framework? So it's the things we do that I think will change, but not the things that we aspire to be. I think they will be consistent.
Well, Matthew, thank you very much for taking the time to run me through that. Thank you for listening to the PFP podcast. You can find useful links in the show notes and related articles on the PFP website. Much of this content can be logged to CPD with a click. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, review and subscribe. Until next time, goodbye.